I had a long conversation with Andy Staples today about Florida State, the ACC, the schedule, a lot of stuff in there. Figured we'd want to use it here as well. So we will in the second segment. Tom and I'll catch you up on the weekend that was before going to that. And then, of course, Ira Chaffel will join us in the second hour as usual, even on President's Day, buddy. That's right. So good times and good to see all of you guys filing into the chat as usual. We appreciate it. Good weekend indeed as Florida State gets the baseball season started right. Yours truly in attendance for both games and thoroughly enjoyed that. Although yesterday's, Tom, not as cold as where you are, but chilly to sit. The second game I sat kind of to the right of home plate on the first baseline. And yeah, man, I'm a pampered media member who's used to the creature comforts of the box. And I had to get back in it with the people and feel that cold and feel that breeze come hit you in the second inning. And even worse yet, when it's, 9-1 in the fourth and you're like, okay, how much more baseball do we need to see this afternoon? Good times, though. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How long did you stay? How many innings? How much of the beatdown did you watch yesterday?
I got through the seventh and I took off.
I was wondering. Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, there's no reason to watch anything beyond 15-1. Although I did certainly go back. I wanted to see some of the younger pitchers who came in. Bullpen struggled a little bit there with the young guys getting, in some cases, their first looks. And, you can feel that, right? You can feel the pressure of it being a game because I saw Link afterwards was a little frustrated that some of those guys weren't as accurate as they had been. They weren't able to locate the way they had in scrimmages prior when they got their opportunity. The pen overall for the weekend that was 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, 4 runs. 3 of those were earned, 4 Ks, 5 walks. Again, they had a bunch of arms that they tried to run out there. I will say there were some real moments this weekend. Let's just start, Tom, with Leiter in the Friday game. Saturday gets washed out, unfortunately. But, I had heard great things about what we were going to see and how competitive he was, and I wanted to see every one of his pitches and did. And 5 innings, no runs. You give up 1 hit, 2 walks, and 13 Ks. That'll work. The one spot that he revealed just how competitive he was, he'd gotten himself into a little bit of trouble. There was a moment with runners at first and second, promptly struck out the next 2 batters. And that's what you want to see. You've got an overmatched team, but his stuff really played. And I thought when he worked in the breaking ball there to go with that fastball that he was running up there at 96, that was impressive stuff. I also thought on the weekend, Carson Dorsey, man, this is going to get interesting. That kid was throwing harder than I think they thought he was going to throw based on the scrimmages he's been in. 94 to 96 from the left side out of the pen. That will play anywhere. It will actually not just play, it'll dominate. It'll dominate if that's what he's going to be. They've lengthened the lineup from a hitting standpoint. They appear to have more pitching, certainly than they had a year ago. And so let's just see where this goes. But it's a great first weekend. And, hey, can you believe 11-0? I mean, really? 11-0. It's just amazing. And I thought it was touching. I just think it was touching. It was just nice to see. And you could tell they were all kind of like, really? 11-0. I mean, it was just a bizarre thing. And then, by the way, Arnold was awesome yesterday. So just so much to like about what that was over the weekend, seeing baseball again and seeing them play well. But Tom, in person, for the first time in eons, I can report to you, they're big. They're big guys. We don't look like a bunch of tiny people running around trying to play a big boy sport. We've got grown-ass men playing baseball. These $1.80 bums we've been rolling out there for years. This is nice. I was like, here we go. We got some dudes that look like they got a little something to them. How's that for your non-scientific approach to baseball? I was like, look at that. That guy's got some ass to him. Hey, look at that guy right there. That's a real tricep. Look at that guy. He's broad-shouldered. Look at this. It was a thing of beauty. I couldn't believe it. We don't look like a bunch of children.
Well, that does matter, not as much as football, but we did that judgment Mike Norvell's first year with the tour of duty before COVID shut the world down, and it was not impressive. And you thought, I thought, this team better have one hell of a chip on its shoulder, and it better be so detail sound it's ridiculous in order for them to have a chance.
That's no way to be, buddy.
No, and baseball is not a contact sport that way, like football is, but it does matter. And when you do bring in athletes who are going to get drafted, that's what they look like. I thought, of all the things, Leiter is number one. He did what he is supposed to do against a team as bad as Butler was last year. We'll see what they are this year.
Sure.
I thought Arnold was impressive yesterday because that was a really tight strike zone. That would be tight.
Very tight strike zone, like uncomfortably tight. Like, hey, sir, this is college and it's cold.
And it would be a tight zone for the MLB too. I mean, it was tough to navigate, and he made the adjustments. He had to aim a little bit at times. You could see that. But I like the poise to be able to and use a word from 11 that is forever enshrined. If he had like 3 or 4 catchphrases, poise would be one of them.
A good one, yeah.
I like that. I like that yesterday, that you handle your business, you move on. That zone won't be that tight all season long, but I was very impressed with that. You navigate through the innings and through a couple of jams because you're getting squeezed, but everybody was getting squeezed yesterday.
Yeah, well, imagine this. You have that tight a zone, you still only give up 2 hits. Arnold only gave up 2 hits, struck out 9, didn't walk anybody with a really tight zone. So I thought he was really good yesterday. And then the other part of that, I mean, obviously you guys could do the math. You combine what I just said about Arnold with Leiter. You're starting pitching this weekend in the opening weekend of the year, gave you 10 innings, gave you a grand total of 2 walks from the starters total, 22 strikeouts, 0 earned runs. I mean, that's just your starters. Now, you had 22 strikeouts alone on Friday. Tom, they didn't record a ground ball out on Friday. So somebody asked me later on, hey, how much better is the defense? I said, nobody knows. Nobody knows. They struck out 22. They struck out 22, and the rest were pop-ups. I have no idea. It was crazy.
They've got options, but it looks like it's still going to be a work in progress there. Our third baseman is all world at the plate. Still looks a little uncomfortable at times in the infield. The middle defense, they're rotating through a bunch of dudes to figure out what the answers are. I saw one nice play up the middle. That was yesterday's game.
Yeah, there were two nice plays at the middle yesterday.
Yeah. But it may still be the weak point of the team, but it looks like there are fewer weak points for this team. So far, that's a team you should destroy, but that looked like what Florida State would do if Florida State was operating the way it should to a program like Butler.
Big boy over at first base. We got a grown man over at first base, Tommy. I'm telling you. By the way, Cantu got screwed this weekend. That kid, he's the giant that I'm talking about. He hit the ball on the screws, I mean, like 6 times this week, and he can't catch a break. That foul, it's exactly right. That foul ball still hasn't landed. He hit a ball beyond the circus tent, and it was foul, and they challenged it, and there was no reason to challenge it. I was laughing. They're like, oh, really? We're going to look at that? Where I was, I could see it directly. I'm like, no, it's foul. But anyhow, he did hit it a mile, and then, you had the obligatory strikeout on the next pitch, because that's what happens when you hit a home run 480 feet and it's deemed foul. You just don't, your heart's not in it. It's the law of baseball. I've never seen a guy actually buck up and square one up again. It doesn't happen. So there was that. But he also had a ball hit off the handle. Like he's about to get drilled, and he turns and he hits the handle. He's like, really? Okay. Oh, this is where everything he did absolutely square up was at somebody or foul.
That reminds me, I think the longest home run you saw was Jim Thome, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen some long home runs. We were talking about this on the phone the other day. You saw Salta Lamacchia hit a 450-footer.
Against the Phillies, straightaway center, grand slam. In fact, in the first inning, that thing still hasn't come down. That was a monster. I was sitting behind home plate. I go, as soon as he hit it, I gasped. I went, ooh.
In 2005, I saw Piazza's last home run in Shea Stadium, and it's hard to picture because it doesn't exist anymore. But he hit it over the key span sign, which is next to the bleachers in left center, and he went over the key span sign. It's the longest home run I've ever seen. But the longest home run that was foul was Mo Vaughn, who could, when he connected, just do things better than Cantu even did yesterday. I was in the old Yankee Stadium, right field upper deck. I was like, all right, here we go. I was in foul territory. We're 25 rows up in that upper deck. It's short out there. He hit it 15 rows over our head. I mean, that thing must have gone forward. It was like Josh Hamilton in the home run derby. He hit it that far. but it was a foul ball, much like Cantu's yesterday. But I was laughing because Marty, Knowles fan in the chat, at 11:05 a.m. posted that. So he was so impressed with Cantu's foul ball, he got here 2 hours early to post in the chat that it still hasn't landed.
It was a monster shot. By the way, Cam, I see you in the chat, and I'll let you know you're staying alive. Sounded great. Now, I was in attendance, so I don't know if the people listening on the radio heard it as well, but I'm assuming they did. Terry, I don't know whatever happened to Democratic Edward, but I always loved him. And if he's around out there, doff of the cap to you, Democratic Edward. Yeah. It's funny how baseball works that way. You remember the home runs that you saw that took your breath away. Tomei hit more than one that I saw. One of them was in spring training down at the old Al Ang in St. Pete above the batter's eye out in straightaway center. You remember that big-ass batter's eye over the 400-foot marker out there?
Yeah.
And he cleared the top of that. That was something to behold. Yeah, good times. Listen, we got a long conversation. You're gonna like this. I want to comment on it further on the other side of it. I think things are going swimmingly for Florida State and where this is all going to end up as far as being an asset that gets gobbled up by either ESPN or Fox and getting big boy money from the big boy trough that we need to really kind of continue to further the quest to be a dominant football program again. Andy Staples reached out to me this morning and wanted to interview me. And so we had a nice conversation, and I think it's on a President's Day where we're relaxed. Hey, why don't we have this? Want to bring it to the table. Good times. I think this is good information for the show. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
If you've been waiting for the perfect time to buy your new house, you'll be waiting forever. This is Shannon Young with Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, and I have been a mortgage lender for over 20 years. And I can tell you that there is no such thing as perfect timing. So take the first step towards your new home and let me show you what that really looks like. Chances are very high that you'll be very surprised at what I can help you do. When rates go low, prices go high, and that home that you've been eyeballing could be gone. If you're wondering how the drop in interest rates is going to affect your payment, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to show you all of the options available to get you into your new home. And for every single loan that we close for a fellow Knoll, I will personally donate $250 per closing to the Battle's End. Let's do this together and let's keep climbing. Call me today at 954-369-6171. That's 954-369-6171. Or you can find me online at loansforknowles.com. That's loansforknowles.com.
Equal housing lender. NMLS number 373031.
Orthopedic pain and injury deserves effective treatment options now, so you feel better fast. Whether you have joint pain that won't subside or an urgent orthopedic injury, we are the specialists to get you back on your feet. And there's only one thing better than fast care: expert care. We believe you deserve both. TOC, only experts. Learn more at teamtoc.com.
Zaxby's Sensation Salad is so much more than a plain old salad. It's a salad, which begs the question, at what point does a salad stop being a salad and become a salad? Is it when you add Zaxby's fried chicken to it? Crunchy wontons? Asian slaw? Citrus vinaigrette? Teriyaki glaze? Sweet and spicy sauce? Or is it when you top it all with a handmade perfectly fried egg roll? Without a doubt, the egg roll. The Sensation Salad, only at Zaxby's.
Man, I just got a text from my wife. She wants me to cook dinner and then snuggle on the couch next to a roaring fire.
So what's the problem, Dave? You already got the new grill, and you're a great cook.
I got one major problem.
That's an easy fix. Just call Hearth and Patio. They got a lot of fireplaces that can help you for your romantic evenings. Wood, gas, electric, and a ton of different sizes, man. Call Hearth and Patio today, 850-727-4282, or visit them online at hearthpatiotallahassee.com. Hearth and Patio. Ignite that spark in your life.
Barry knows cool. He's keeping you comfortable. Barry knows cool. You can build him to the test.
You're
heating and air conditioning system doesn't check with you before it takes a break. That's why we're always ready to help. Any day, anytime, anywhere. And with our annual service agreement, there are no overtime charges. Ever. At Verno Heating and Air, we will always be there for you.
Verno Heating and Air Conditioning.
License CAC 1816186.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orangetheory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orangetheory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orangetheory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orangetheory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com now.
So I did want to introduce it. There was an article that came out. Matt Baker wrote it over the weekend, or maybe it was on Friday, and I think it was Saturday, and it had an interesting passage in it where it was kind of pointed out that perhaps there's room for negotiation here, which is kind of telling. And he wanted to talk to me about that and all the additions, obviously, to Florida State's roster. So that took place this morning at 8 a.m., and it's now on the JCS today at 1:22. Here you go.
About what happened Friday, Jeff. Like, is it possible the ACC is willing to negotiate with Florida State?
Seems like it. Andy, listen, I think you and I, since the beginning, have kind of felt like at some point that's what would happen. And I'm not a lawyer, and I try to read into page upon page upon page of the filings at this point. And you do get a sense that although it's vitriolic, although there's a ton of pettiness involved in all of it, you understand that that is the legal wrangling. That is the stuff that they have to do. And one side will submit their reasons for dismissal, and then the next will do that within the respective states. But I do think that's where this is headed, and I think that's where Florida State always wanted it to head. There was no way they were going to fight to get out if they thought that they were going to legitimately have to pay $500+ million to do so. I don't believe they ever intended to do that. I don't think that the courts would uphold that. They don't either. And I think at some point that leads to a negotiation.
Yeah. So here's what it said in the filing. It's interesting because what the ACC was filing, and remember, there's two cases. There's one in North Carolina that the ACC filed. There's one in Florida that Florida State filed. So this is in the one in Florida, and the ACC submitted this early Friday afternoon. And it's basically saying, here's why the case should not be tried in Florida. It should be tried in North Carolina. And then a couple of other arguments, which are actually kind of interesting and probably support the ACC's argument. Like they've spent a lot of time saying, well, Florida State took delivery on the deal. They took the money these past 8 years from the contract. So therefore, it's not the rotten deal that they say it is. But here's the little nugget. And shout out to Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times, who found this first and put a story out immediately, and really good job alerting everybody to this. This is the clause in that argument. There's 40 pages of filing, but this is the paragraph that is the most meaningful. If Florida State wishes to regain control of the rights, this is the TV rights, before the end of the term, it could attempt to repurchase them. But having to buy back a right which was assigned is not a penalty. It is simply a commercial possibility. What a turn of phrase. A commercial possibility. So if you were to have a commercial possibility, then you could conceivably have this much money, and this is the amount we'll take. Now, you mentioned $500+ million, Jeff. When Florida State filed its initial complaint, its attorneys estimated it would cost $572 million, which is the exit fee from the ACC plus what they assume to be the cost of the TV rights through 2036. So where do you think Florida State's mind is at in terms of what a fair dollar figure would be to get out?
Well, it's interesting to speculate. I have an idea based on conversations that I've had with people behind the scenes in the past, but I will tell you this, even without speculation, they've thrown around numbers in open conversations and open dialogue. In fact, at one point, Peter Collins, department chair, said that basically, chair of the board of trustees, that if this were only $150 million, Florida State would have left already. So we know they'd pay $150 million. So he basically all but admitted that. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 million. I think if tomorrow they knew that was the number and they could be free to negotiate with either the Big Ten or the SEC and move on from the ACC, I think they would do it.
Well, and I think this also sets up something else interesting because, like, they didn't have to put this into this filing. This did not have to be submitted in a public document, it's a public record. And because if I'm Clemson or if I'm North Carolina and I have the same goals as Florida State, I've just gone about it a different way. Now I'm looking at it like, okay, what do we have to do to negotiate this? And I would assume the ACC knows that.
Yeah, and I think it's odd that if the ACC, listen, Andy, if Florida State leaves the ACC and it opens the door, as you're suggesting, for North Carolina and Clemson to do the same, the conference dead in the water. There have been people that said the conference is dead, walking around just doesn't know it yet. I mean, I thought that this would go to the bitter end to some extent because I think that the ACC has hinted as much that losing FSU at this point, or North Carolina or Clemson, if you'd like, it's just that Florida State's been the most aggressive, is akin to dissolving the contract with ESPN. Who's signing up for that television contract without your major players?
Yeah, and the only thing I can think is they're looking at this as a potential cash infusion. Like, if they could get $300 million from each school, which is a lot of money, but we'll talk about that in a second because it's not as much as you think in the grand scheme.
Right.
That's basically, if it's those three, that's basically almost $1 billion cash, which time value of money, if you handle that properly, you can keep the corpse of that conference afloat for quite some time.
But to what end? I mean, it's interesting. You're right. You could. It certainly does not become the viable asset to ESPN or to anybody else negotiating a long-term television deal down the line without a Clemson, without a Florida State, or without a North Carolina. You're right. It just becomes an also-ran conference, which is what I thought this was about, that we were going to get to a place where I never – listen, we could go down this road. You and I talked about this a lot. Jim Phillips never, in my opinion, seemed to understand the way this was going to play out and how aggressive his competitors were. And that, I think, there was a little naivete there. He wanted to believe in the greater good, and yet there was overwhelming evidence from his cohorts like Greg Sankey that they were out for blood. This was a race to see who wins the conference war. And, to Sankey's credit, he has lobbied on behalf of the SEC around every turn. He has struck the better deals, and he has taken the opportunities where PR advancements could be made to do so. And Jim Phillips kind of calmly told everybody things were going to be fine in the ACC, and we believe that where we stand is rock solid. I don't know that he believes that. I don't know that the ACC believes that any longer.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you're putting that into that filing if you believe that. I think you're now preparing for the inevitable. And it's so interesting to me, Jeff, because you've dealt with this conference for a long time. Jim Phillips' successor, John Swofford, was perhaps the best at that clandestine, cutthroat, go get what you got to get. Or think about this. If John Swofford acts like Jim Phillips did, and Mike Tranghese acts like John Swofford did, the Big East would be a power conference in football, and the ACC probably wouldn't even exist right now. Like, that the ACC exists because John Swofford recognized that football was going to drive the train and went and got what they needed to survive.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, Andy, though, where this thing turned for me, and we agree to some degree on that. That is a factual statement you just made. There are some other missteps along the way from John Swofford. Many who are the pro football people, and I'm not talking about professional football, people who saw that the ACC needed to hitch its wagon to football and not basketball, wished that he had made prior. And there are some dubious deals that were made that were pointed out in the last countersuit by FSU, which, by the way, when they did that, the gloves were off in a way that the genie can never go back in the bottle. I mean, you attack the man's son and his legacy. At that point, we are done dealing here. There was never going to be a negotiation at that point, I wouldn't think. But, these things get ugly, and it got really ugly at that point. When I read through that and saw John Swofford's name mentioned as opposed to the ACC, and when I saw his son's name brought up, I thought, oh, well, they're done. They have decided to go for broke here.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about this, and I think the reason the negotiation part is brought in, although I still wonder why it was brought in now instead of much later in the process. But I don't know that they want to get too much further down the road with this thing. They probably don't want a lot of discovery because that could be embarrassing for both parties.
Correct.
But if it were to go to trial ultimately, the potential ending could be disastrous for both parties, because if the court says, no, the grant of rights is completely enforceable, and if you want to get out of the ACC, you owe $500-something million, well, that's non-starter for Florida State. The other option is the court says the grant of rights is not enforceable at all, and Florida State, you can walk away for nothing, which is a disaster for the ACC. So neither party wants to risk going to trial here. But let's talk about the number, because $300 million is the one I keep coming back to, because it feels like it's sort of the between point between the two polls. But it's also, let's say, and this is a negotiated one, because like if Florida State were to prevail at trial, then their withdrawal from the ACC would be retroactive to last year. They could conceivably be out in time for 2024. That doesn't logistically make a lot of sense. Yeah. But let's say they negotiated an exit for 2025 and it cost $300 million and they wound up in the Big Ten. Let's just hypothetically, you're going to make probably $40 million more a year there than you would make in the ACC. And so you have 11 years to pay off this mortgage of $300 million.
Right, here you go, right? Yeah.
You're probably going to make a little bit of a profit, like a little tiny bit more once, because there will be interest, and maybe it's private equity paying the freight up front. We'll see. But you're probably going to make a little more if you did that.
I think, yes, there is a magic number, Andy, and I don't know if it's 300 million on the nose, but I think it's fair to speculate on that number for the reasons that you just laid out. It is fascinating to watch this. I have learned over time, you have too, from watching the ugliness of lawsuits and parties who have a lot to gain and a lot to lose. They will say and do almost anything within reason. But I also know that the start of these negotiations eventually are all on behalf of what they know what's at risk. Like you're saying,
yeah.
The idea that Florida State could walk for nothing is a very real thing. The idea that Florida State could lose and have to pay $500+ million is a very real thing. It's percentages. And I think for Florida State, they've never believed that a court would believe that $500+ million to exit was fair. They would view that as being overly penal. And I think they have evidence to that end. I mean, I think you've watched courts have a hard time with what would be deemed egregious penalties financially for enforcements of grant of rights in the past. So I think they knew that we would be entering a stage similar to the one we're discussing right now the second they filed the lawsuit. I thought the key play long ago was the open Board of Trustees meeting in which they began to discuss a path to leave the ACC, and they noted that it was untenable to stay. The second they said that, you knew what their strategy was, what their efforts were headed towards. And this was all inevitable. And I just never thought that they would pull the trigger as quickly as they did. But once they did, I thought they knew they must have a path to negotiation or an outright exit.
Yeah. And then the other thing is people keep asking about, do they have a landing spot? I find it very hard to believe that they would do all of this without some idea that there's a landing spot. I tend to think the Big Ten is the spot because the Big Ten would want to move into that territory.
Yeah, I'm curious, Andy, because I want your opinion on this. It's an interesting discussion. The Big Ten would want to plant a flag in the SEC's backyard. They would want to grab it if they could, if it would make sense. If it's all-out war and it's Fox versus ESPN, let's say, would you not, at that point, you'd have a countrywide conference, obviously, as opposed to a regional conference in the SEC. So you would have Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, potentially Miami. I don't know if they go that route or not, but for the Big Ten. So now we're going coast to coast, and you got all the Midwest to boot. I would think the counter to that is with the ACC on the verge of dissolving, that ESPN doesn't re-up, and we have to know that by 2026, right? 2025. So I would think at that point, again, SEC, ESPN, Big Ten, Fox, no matter others' feelings, commissioners' feelings, athletic directors' feelings, at some point you would want to counter that move by Fox and the Big Ten if you were ESPN, especially since the ACC will no longer be an asset. And wouldn't you say, you know what, guys, look, this isn't going to – you can be mad if you want to be, if you're Florida or anybody else. We're taking Florida State so that the Big Ten doesn't get them.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would think is the encroachment on the territory piece. Like that's where Clemson would probably find a home in that situation. And Florida State would be the same thing. And I think the part that makes this more interesting is ESPN and Fox are about to go into business together with a streaming service. That's where you wonder. And oh, by the way, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, the two commissioners, just formed an advisory group. So all of this is all happening at once.
Football in mind, Andy, you know they do.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like I feel like all of this is related, and like I don't think. You can make a deal for because they want to make a deal for the college football playoff, like a new TV deal that extends beyond the 2025 season. I'm not sure they can yet because I don't think they know what these conferences are going to look like.
Correct. You're right. I think, and you were just talking about it before I came in and joined you. I think that's right. I continue to hear rumblings from teams from other conferences saying, well, or commissioners of other conferences saying, whoa, we can't have a deal. We don't know who the players are just yet. We can't have a deal if we don't know who's where. It's crazy. It's fascinating. And I do think this is all related and connected. And once these moves have begun to fall like dominoes, Andy, go back to the lawsuit and then watch what's happened since then. And I'm not saying it's solely because of the lawsuit. I think we were moving inexorably towards this. But, I mean, this is where we were going. And right now, it's about divvying up the assets and deciding who's going to play ball and who's not, who wants to be part of this and who wants to go somewhere else and maybe play, for lack of a better term, a lesser brand of football. I mean, the pieces are on the board. There are a lot of assets still to be claimed and fought over here. Once that's done, I think we know it's not like relegation, but I think we're going to find some teams don't want to play big boy football or this brand of football. They don't have the investment or they don't see that as their future, and others still do. And clearly Florida State, along with North Carolina and Clemson, are huge assets to any television deal that you're going to make long-term involving playoff and or super leagues.
Well, especially if you're going to a giant league where most of your games are going to be in that league, most if not all, and you're going to stay in that ecosystem. You're not going to play much outside the ecosystem. And that's the thing that I wonder, like, how close are we to the SEC and the Big Ten being it? And it feels closer than ever now.
It's funny. I remember having a conversation with an attorney who's kind of connected to the big workings of college football. You know these guys, Andy, and he was saying, because we were Florida State fans were like wringing their hands about what to do, where to go, and how soon could we get there. And we're talking about the value of these assets, just solely looking at programs as assets. And at one point he turned to me and said, this is all hand-wringing. Don't worry about it. Eventually, it's just going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. That is to say ESPN and Fox, and eventually they'll join forces too. So Florida State's going to have a landing spot. Don't worry about it. He said that to me over a year ago.
I mean, it makes sense. And when you see everything kind of the tea leaves coming together, when you see the MAC commissioner saying, hey, don't necessarily believe the reports that we've agreed on a TV deal for the playoff because we haven't. And yeah, because I wouldn't, if I'm them, I don't know that although I guess if I'm the Big 12 and the Group of 5 leagues and the ACC, I would want to sign up for that as quickly as possible to lock myself into some money before things change again.
No, I don't disagree with you.
The ACC learned that the hard way with the alliance. So,
well, you're talking about the many missteps along the way, sir. These are the things that I'm referencing when I talk about the naivete of Jim Phillips. Yeah, I agree with you, sir. I think we both know where this is going. But I am fascinated to see who wants to be part of it, who doesn't, who's going to be invited, who's not. I do think for Florida State fans, that have been concerned about this, I do believe this is an inevitability that Florida State will be out. Obviously, I think 2024, they play the schedule they have. It's actually kind of a fun schedule, to be honest with you. You get to go over to Ireland if you're a Florida State fan. You get to go to Notre Dame. You get to host Clemson in Florida. It's a fun schedule. But after that, it may be the last hurrah. I tell people to enjoy it. It's a weird year for FSU because they're going to be doing all the construction on the stadium. Well, they are doing, as you saw, all the construction on the stadium. It's all cranes in there. It's all cranes and concrete and empty spaces where seats once sat. And it's interesting to have this because I do believe it's probably their final year in the conference. So let's talk about that. Listen, you've been doing this show's radio longer than me. And that's why you're better at segues than me. Because that is a perfect segue to the conversation I wanted to have about Florida State this season. It's interesting when I was up there last week talking to some of the newcomers, talking to DJU, you realize how different this team's going to be than the one that won the ACC last year. That doesn't mean it's not going to be that good. It just means it's going to be different. And you just mentioned the schedule, like that opener against Georgia Tech in Ireland, week 0 is tough, but the start of the season beyond that, if they can win that one, they got a nice little runway. I don't think they could have asked for a better schedule setup than the one that they got. I really think that, we play the game locally on the air. Let's guess the schedule. Everybody wants to know. Everybody's intrigued. And we kind of laid out what I thought would happen. And I outside of one game, I think maybe the Cal game, we pretty much nailed it. Now, admittedly on the air, I said, well, this is what would be ideal for Florida State if they could get this. Because of where the buys land and because the type of competition you have before your biggest games of the year, you have really nice run-ups to all the critical matchups, the losable games, if you will. And I do think that coupled with the speed they've added, obviously with a bridge quarterback like DJU, I think it's reasonable for Florida State fans to believe that they absolutely have a very good shot to defend the ACC title. I bring that up because I don't think they would have believed that was possible when the season ended, given what they were going to lose, given the amount of potential NFL draft picks they were going to lose. It didn't seem reasonable to project Florida State to be a 10 or 11 win team. And now I think it is reasonable. The schedule coupled with what they've brought in, which is a lot, and you're right, it is a different looking team. But they have filled a ton of needs with valuable experience. And where they don't have experience, they have guys on the precipice of taking the next step, or guys, in the case of many of the Alabama players, who were 5-star recruits that were brought in by Nick Saban. So obviously you appreciate that evaluation. Now you get those guys who either performed well there or were on the verge of becoming starters there to enter your roster in valuable spots: running back, wide receiver, linebacker, safety. Florida State did a good job of rating others' rosters, in particular Alabama. Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, we saw Roydell Williams carrying balls for Alabama. Now, he's probably looking at Justice Haynes going, that guy's going to probably carry more than me next year, so I might need to bounce somewhere. But, I mean, I'll bring up a name that made that same decision at Alabama years ago, Alvin Kamara. He's like,
oh, Derrick Henry's better than me, I'm leaving. So that happens. But, it is interesting. And you mentioned, Sean Murphy, Roydell, Earl Little, Terrence Ferguson. These are all guys that could come in and potentially play. Malik Benson. Like, you hope they can play a role. And do they have to be as good as their Alabama starting counterpart for FSU to win the ACC? No, they don't.
They don't. And in some cases, they will be. In others, they won't be. I don't think it matters. I think you've just raised the floor of talent considerably. This is the area, Andy, where Mike Norvell, obviously, we know what a job he's done, and he's been paid handsomely for it. We documented how close it was that Florida State was going to lose their head coach to Alabama. As it turns out, they keep him, and they sign him to a longer deal and more money. One of the things that he has done, I think, better than maybe everybody in college football is recognize how to best utilize the portal. And it's not just going getting good players. Everybody can recognize the need to do that. It's guys that fit, and it's guys that fit what you need in your culture. They've had really zero disruptions in that locker room, despite the influx of so many players from outside the program. And I think that's the balance. He figured out the need to bring in and raise the floor of talent at FSU and do it quickly, while also satisfying a culture rebuild and understanding how not to upset the apple cart. It's really been quite a deft touch.
So as the new, and this may be their only year in the new ACC, but the one that intrigues me the most, the stretch that intrigues me the most, is they get Cal at home. I'm not as worried about that. Cal was pretty good last year with Jake Spavital calling the plays. He winds up going to Baylor as the OC. So it's probably back to being a probably defense first Justin Wilcox team. SMU in Dallas, September 28th, a week before the Clemson game. That one looks like a fun one.
I think it's a great game. I said that was a sneaky good game. I told my audience that I thought if there was a game that you would circle as a potential upset, other than Georgia Tech, who really came on late last year and played very good football and seems to be moving in the right direction, I thought it was SMU. They have an appetite for growing and becoming a big boy program. Obviously, they've got money, they've got investment, they've got success, they've got a good coach. They had a great season a year ago, and they're hosting the game. I know that's a small stadium, so when we talk about home field advantages, you don't often bring up SMU. But I imagine that is a game that, once again, is a kind of jumping off spot for where they want to go. And so you're going to get an intensity in that stadium that you don't often see. And I think Florida State fans are excited to travel there. Anytime you get to go to Dallas-Fort Worth or something along those lines, you're excited to do it as a road game. So, yeah, that's a sneaky good game.
Yeah, Highland Park's going to be hopping that day. And then Clemson the week after against DJU in Tallahassee.
It's
like
great.
The storyline's just out the wazoo in that one.
It's a fun schedule. This is a fun year upcoming, a fun team. It's interesting. DJU has come in and said all the right things, and you got to believe, Andy, that if he's got that great year in him, it's going to be this year. He's got weapons. He's got an offensive mind, and Mike Norvell as a coach who really makes life easy on quarterbacks. So if he wants to see a tick up in that completion percentage, which is an area he needs to improve upon, he already throws the ball deep well. I think Florida State finally got a guy that will keep on the read option, and that's not a knock on Jordan Travis. They were trying to stay healthy there, but you got a big quarterback now in short yardage situations. I don't know how he doesn't have a very good year. I think he will. And you're right. That storyline's amazing with Clemson coming to town and DJU, who has said all the right things. He hasn't thrown anything vitriolic Clemson's way. But we all know there'll be a lot of emotion in that football game. And Clemson, frankly, needs that game because Florida State took back the ACC a year ago, won in overtime on the road against Clemson in what was an awesome game. And now Clemson's going to be obviously hungry to prove that was an outlier, whereas Florida State wants to prove, at least for the short term while we're in the conference, that it's Florida State's conference again.
Yeah, and then that at Notre Dame could be a playoff elimination because Notre Dame looks at that schedule and they say, okay, we open with Texas A&M. It's not the most challenging schedule as Notre Dame schedules go, but getting Florida State in November in South Bend is not going to be easy. And they're going to have to win probably both of those.
I would think. And in previous years, I would have looked at the North Carolina game preceding the Notre Dame game as a problem for Florida State. I know this will upset North Carolina fans, but I don't think they're going to be very good this year. So I'm not as concerned if I'm a Florida State guy about that game before the Notre Dame game as I would have been maybe, say, the last couple of years with a first-round quarterback.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, Jeff, this has been fascinating, and we're probably going to be bugging you quite a bit more as the weeks go by, because it sounds like this is starting to bubble.
Yeah, I think it's ramping up, Andy, and I do think there'll be more meat on the bone for us legally. You know, we'll have to get our legal friends together and figure out what it all means. I'm forever talking to too many lawyers, but you got to find a kernel of information there that makes some sense that you can then use on the show, and it's fun to have those conversations like our friend Matt Baker did. So I look forward to it, but it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Your local news now.
An 11-year-old and a 15-year-old were arrested on Thursday after admitting to shooting at a Wakulla County school bus twice with air rifles as it was taking students home. The bus was shot as it was taking students home from Shadeville Elementary School while traveling on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Boulevard in the area of Graham Trail. 2 of the school bus windows were shattered when it was shot at twice by a BB gun and a pellet gun. Wakulla County Fire Rescue evaluated the bus driver and students. No children were seriously injured, but one student had a minor leg injury from glass debris. The 2 young suspects were located by law enforcement after deputies conducted a search in the area. Both suspects admitted to shooting the air rifles at the bus. A BB gun and a pellet gun were recovered by detectives, which authorities said were both hidden in a wooded area next to a home. Both suspects were arrested and transported to the Wakulla County Jail. This is Rachel today with your Real Talk 93.3 local news update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Bright sunshine expected this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 64. Winds out of the northwest, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows around 38. Daytime highs approaching 68 tomorrow. Bright sunshine expected. Clear skies Wednesday with a high of 70. 72 Thursday. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, it's 60 degrees.
I'm Greg Tisch here to share one of my favorite TCC stories. In the summer of 1966, Eugene Lamb wanted to stay in shape before leaving to play college basketball in Louisiana. So he jogged to Tallahassee from his home in Midway and helped lay the bricks for the first building on what's now the TCC campus on Appleyard Drive. Today, he is a longtime member of the TCC District Board of Trustees. It's no exaggeration when we say Trustee Lamb helped build TCC into what it is today.
TCC thanks our community for 58 years of support. We look forward to moving into the future together.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The bungalow chung, Jeff?
Is that what is the pork?
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All of these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of that nobody would know and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now.
That tuned into that. You know what's funny, Tom? We only have a few minutes here before starting the next hour, but you're noticing a trend. I was reading an article over the weekend about what Oregon State and Washington State are attempting to do with the only chip they have, which is again, they are the Pac-12. And so they're withholding their votes on the playoff because they can, right? So they're trying to bargain something for their 2 member institutions. But that would fall under the umbrella of doing what's best for your school. And all of a sudden you start hearing, you see that phrase used a lot in a lot of articles, like what programs are doing what's best for the school, like all of the other schools in that conference that left. And it's what FSU is attempting to do. And it's all just normal. It's logical. Everybody, yeah, of course, they got to do what's in their best interest. Oh, really? And meanwhile, you would listen to a clown who's carrying water for whomever it is that particular week, like Paul Feinbaum, who would then somehow impugn the reputation of the administrators at FSU who are attempting to do what's best for their program and say nobody respects them because they're out for themselves. And, they look at what they've tried to do to that conference and they know that's just, they're bad actors. Really? Really? Okay. So everybody is just doing exactly what Florida State is leading the way to do. It's just that Clemson and others in the conference didn't have the courage to say, yeah, us too, and lead the fight as well. No, Florida State is leading the way because they have no choice, just as many others have already done, and nobody looks upon them poorly. Nobody looks at them as selfish. They look at them as trying to survive. And, of course, the Pac-12 didn't survive because they couldn't do what was right for the whole of the conference. So those people said, peace, I'm out. You can't negotiate a deal, I'm out. We can get more into this next hour. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Suffer from arthritis are getting real pain relief with exciting biologic therapies at QC Kinetics.
The success rate is there, and there's no better way to treat yourself when it comes to dealing with pain.
Meet Tyler Vale, co-founder of QC Kinetics, who says they can't cure arthritis, but they can treat the pain.
If you think of the tide coming in and out on the beach and what it does, it erodes the sand, right? Can't stop the tide, but eventually when the sand or the beach gets bad enough, when we backfill that beach with sand so that we get generations of enjoyment with that beach again. And the same thing happens with your knee or your shoulder or your hip or your back. We want to backfill the problems that have happened to this point. I'm not stopping the tide, so I'm not stopping the arthritis, but I want to get generations of enjoyment out of those joints again.
Call QC Kinetics now for your free consultation. Learn more about how restorative biologic therapies can get you real and lasting joint pain relief.
Call QC Kinetics, 850-391-4280. That's 850-391-4280. 850-391-4280.
There's nothing like relaxing in a hot tub after a long day. But if you don't have one, you're truly missing out. Hot tubs and spas have tremendous health benefits, besides just helping you relax. Like improving your sleep, they help with pain relief. They help to better your cardiovascular health, and so much more. And this season is the perfect season to finally buy what you've been wishing for. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patio, and Spas has the hot tubs you need for the price you want. Come shop our huge 12,000 square foot showroom and save today. There's over 50 hot tubs in stock right now, so you won't have to wait weeks on end for that delivery to finally come to town. If you're ready to relax, we're here to show you how. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patios, and Spas. Come visit our huge showroom at 2473 Greer Road with over 50 hot tubs to choose from. You'll be glad you did.
Power Mill Training Academy equips motivated athletes focused on baseball and softball with the specific tools to reach their true potential. Now, you'll read that if you go to their website, but I'm here to tell you that, look, whether it's your daughter wanting to play softball, your son wants to play baseball, or maybe they just want to have fun and get the most out of their abilities, and that's where Power Mill comes into play. They've got coaches and camps that teach for every level of play for your son or your daughter. To learn more, go to PowerMillSports.com.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Coming up next, more of the Jeff Cameron Show. Live and local on Real Talk 93.3. WVFT, Greta, Tallahassee.
The latest betting odds and line movements from Vegas. This is your action update. Now here are your latest lines from our guys in the desert.
Rain washed away the Daytona 500 Sunday, so the Great American Race will happen on President's Day. Denny Hamlin is the 8-1 favorite. Joey Logano on the pole, and Kyle Busch are both 9-1. To finish in the top 10, you'll lay money for Hamlin, Logano, and Busch. Hamlin minus 310, $2.75 for Logano, and $2.50 for Busch. College basketball coming up today. It's Florida A&M, a 9.5-point road dog at Alcorn State, 139 the total. Tampa Bay Lightning, $1.70 home favorite against Ottawa, 7 under at Amalie Arena. Get your free VSiN subscription right now at VSIN.com. For more sports betting news and information, go to VSIN.com. Mike Son at Real Talk 93.3.
This week at Macy's, shop incredible specials on what you need now, like 65% off warm and stylish coats for her, and 40 to 50% off shoes, handbags, and accessories to complete your look. Plus, take 15 to 60% off great furniture and mattress deals, too. And Star Rewards members earn rewards even faster now during Star Money bonus days. At Macy's, savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.
My heart was racing just making spaghetti. I could have waited to tell my doctor, but I didn't wait.
I was short of breath just reading a book. I could have delayed telling my doctor, but I didn't wait.
They told their doctors and found out they have atrial fibrillation, a condition which makes it about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. If you have one or more of these symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness, this is no time to wait. Contact your doctor.
Brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we were hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to tread water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mndlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
Hello, I'm Dana Brooks.
And I'm Jimmy Basic.
Traffic cameras are everywhere, providing valuable evidence if you've been in an accident.
But if you can't access that evidence, it could just be your word against theirs.
Basic Brooks is partnered with Roadproof to have access to all their traffic camera footage. If you've been hurt in an accident, give us a call and we'll find out if the proof you need is out there.
Let us find your video evidence so you can come back stronger. Call us now at 850-777-7777.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orangetheory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orangetheory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orangetheory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orangetheory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orangetheory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time for the Jeff Cameron Show in 5, 4, 3.
However you go find that. Go to YouTube, type it in. You'll see it. It'll come up. Carrying on the conversation we were just having, Tom, you didn't get a chance to weigh in, but I'm laughing now because I think we're moving ever closer to a place where it will just be seen as, oh, of course they did what they were supposed to do. Yeah, everybody could have seen that was the right thing. And I want many in our fan base to say, no. We were all skewered at one time or another for having the audacity to believe that Florida State should act on their own and make sure that they secure a place at the money table, because it appears that the league that they're in isn't going to, and now is the time. Don't wait. We think the writing's on the wall. We can see it's weekly led, and we know what the SEC's doing. We know what the Big Ten's doing. That was pushed back upon. It was very, very similar to when we had the conversations when it was, Florida State losing football games and maybe it was time to make a change with Coach Bowden. People, oh, what are you doing? And then they'd make fun of us. And I always bring this point up, that whenever you act on your own behalf as a program to fight for what's going to be what's best for you or your best interest long term, it's always met with skepticism. It's always met with pushback, especially if you're the first. But it's also always the right thing, and you can gladly extend your middle fingers when they come around to the idea of what you already knew to be true.
Yeah, agreed on all fronts. I think, when this is all said and done, I know that maybe some players in this game are legacy hunting, to get Florida State to a different position. But when this is all said and done, I don't either. And this is something to be proud of, that watch what Clemson's done, see what North Carolina has done. Nothing. These are cowards. They're cowards compared to Florida State. They're letting us, you're leaving us in the trenches, taking the grenades, John. That's an old Wedding Crashers line. That's exactly what we're doing. But we know that if nobody else is going to do it, then we have the stones to do what's happening right now in multiple court settings in multiple states. And if and when it's over, and if and when we're in the Power 2, and other schools follow suit like cowardly North Carolina and yellow-bellied Clemson, then we should be proud of that. That's going to be a moment where Florida State fans can get together and say, we did this. Not only did we succeed with no tradition, where Florida had 50 years of tradition in this state. They wanted the best athletes from Florida State. A quick history lesson. They wanted the best athletes from Tallahassee to go down to Gainesville and play sports for them. And we said, no, we're going co-ed. So we had the stones to do that. In the 70s, we rose from nothing to prominence thanks to Bobby Bowden. This is another in the chapter. We don't have endowments the way that Florida does, the way that LSU or Alabama does. We've always batted above our weight class. We've always fought above and punched above our weight class. This would be the next thing in that line of a legacy that we can be proud of if and when it's all said and done. But there's still a couple of hurdles to clear.
Yeah, but it's moving in the direction that we thought it would. And I think that's the other part of this, is that you kind of sensed that this was inevitable. And, you did hear people bring up the term ironclad a lot. And of course, Ira made me laugh. He'll be joining me later this hour, but he kept pointing out, notice how they're not referencing the grant of rights as ironclad as frequently as they once did. Once they came around to the idea that it probably was overly penal, and you began to hear attorneys say as much, that this is far exceeding what would be a rational judgment.
And also remember that you referenced it briefly, but the host in Alabama that is carrying water for the SEC has taken all sides of the Florida State argument as we sit here today.
Every one of them, depending on what he was told to say in that given month or week.
Florida State, remember, in August of last year was a perfect fit for the
Quote,
SEC.
unquote.
I think they're a natural fit. They're a perfect fit. So these talking heads don't matter. This is where we were saying in December, when it seemed really, doom and gloom, and we were worrying about opt-outs and what was coming next. And I'm not a big fan of isolationism as a general policy, but for Florida State fans, this is still a good time to be an isolationist until we come out the other side. There's just so much change. I think Doak is a perfect analogy for what's going on with the program right now, what's going on with our existence as an athletic program, what the ACC is going through. It's like major change is coming in so many ways for us in the next 4 to 5 years on every level.
So you had an example of what can happen if you trust in the benevolence or the goodwill or the greater good of a conference or the sport. You had an example of how that naivete could cost you your job, could cost you your money, could cost you your seat at the table. The Pac-12 has got 2 teams in it now. And they had offers several times over. One was from ESPN for $30 million per, and they said no. They thought they could do better. They were going to negotiate a different deal. Then they went to Apple. Remember that? They were going to try to make a deal with Apple. And I think it was the athletic director at Utah who said, no, we're worth way more than they're willing to pay. That's ridiculous. We're not going to do it.
Real quick, they were going to pay them per view or something along those lines. Like Apple's like, we're not committing dollars. We'll pay you based upon how many views you generate, how many subscriptions you sell. So they were turning into a subscription business. And no, that's not going to work, man.
But when they were offered the $30 million by ESPN, if you had had good leadership at the conference level, right, they would have recognized what their value was and said, okay, we need to come back with something more than 30. We think we can get more than 30, but ESPN had already offered 30. So if you come back with 32 to 35, you got a deal. They're going to do it. But they said no. And nobody could wrangle the presidents and the athletic directors of that conference and get consensus, which is what a commissioner has to do. And he couldn't, and he failed, and he's out of a job. And that's the last 2 Pac-12 commissioners are now out of a job because they could not create consensus. They could not get people to agree, and now they don't exist. Not really. And so in the midst of all of that, USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington and everybody else went, peace. This is falling to pieces around us. We've got to do what we've got to do. They're all doing, and they all did, the same thing. You know, FSU just recognized it pretty, I would even say, some would argue late, but they finally did recognize, look, we're about to get screwed here. This is going to turn ugly in a hurry. And by the way, I'm not getting a good feeling about this Jim character. He seems to think that everybody's going to do what's right for college football, despite overwhelming evidence that those in your own region are not going to do what's right for college football. They're going to do what's right for them. You're going to get passed over, Jim. And we finally went, okay, well, we said something. They went, oh, this is reprehensible. We're not doing that. Okay, we're out.
Yeah, you saw that they're sticking to their old playbook too. Did you see the release last week? I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, where they announced future sites for their conference championships.
They're all in North Carolina.
They're playing the same tunes, man. They're all in North Carolina.
They're all in North Carolina. I cracked up laughing. I went, okay, really?
I hope we printed that up in the athletic department in Moore Center and then use it as toilet paper. Because think about that. Like, this is a large conference. If you're talking about geography, it spans really cool cities. Like, you could do some stuff in Boston. I know Boston College is worthless, but at least make something out of it. Let's go to the city and have a good time. All of them in North Carolina. These fools, man, cannot wait. And when it's all said and done, and when Clemson is with us in our future destination, wherever that is, I think the first game we play against Clemson, we should all wear shirts in garnet and gold that say "You're welcome." That's what we should wear. It should just say "You're welcome." It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I do think, again, the inevitability of this. It's easy, I think, for us rightfully to say you cowards, but at the same time, once they realized Florida State was moving forward, I kind of understand why they sat back in the cut, because they knew that they didn't have to bring a lawsuit. They just watch whatever happens with Florida State is the blueprint for how to get out. Yes, we led the way as fearless leaders, and we should champion that cause. But if I'm any of those other schools, once it happens, I'd probably do the same thing. All right, well, let them be the guinea pig. If they lose, they're going to owe $575 million, and we'll know what the deal is.
Yeah, it's smart if it works, if it all works out for them and they're brought along, and they probably will be. They're valuable assets, especially North Carolina, which is annoying that despite,
agreed. It is annoying.
Nobody shows up for their games. Their current head coach quit when they were remember that game 3 years ago, we're up there at Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Like, that's the guy you want leading that program, this valuable asset. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Well, I don't think they do anymore. I think they recognize they just had an elite quarterback who's going to go in the top 3, and they couldn't put together the kinds of seasons they were hoping for.
Guys, it's amazing, really. It's not just about our basketball program, but we're kind of valuable. I don't know how. Maybe it's our colors. It's kind of the states, too, because everybody's migrating to North Carolina. We really haven't done it. We haven't really done a damn thing, and everybody wants us. So it's amazing. We might want to try it, this football thing, pretty soon.
Well, all I care about is that we're seeing the signs, the telltale signs that things are breaking down in a positive way for Florida State, and the sooner the better. I want 2024 to be the final, romp around the ACC, the goodbye tour, good times. It was real. We'll remember it. Go to hell. I hope the rest of you are poor, and we're going to go get rich. That's how we say it.
That's thanks for the memories on the front of a shirt. Go to hell on the back of the shirt for the ACC championship game this year. If we make it to Charlotte, there's another one. Thanks for the memories. Go to hell.
Go to hell. You can have double middle fingers on the back of the shirt on either side of go to hell.
It's like one on each shoulder.
Shoulder. Yeah. Well, this will be a fun. I said this the other day. I can't wait to go to Charlotte. They made the ACC kickoff now 4 days. We won't be there for 4 days. There'll be no reason to be there for 4 days. 4 effing days. What are we doing? Oh, so we could better cover Cal and Stanford. But yeah, no, the whole thing's weird. But luckily, Florida State goes on the first day. So in essence, we're going to be there a total of 2 days. We're not going to see the back end of all this.
No, the fourth. Yeah, because the fourth day is Clemson. I think Miami's also on the fourth day. We're not waiting.
Long gone. Most important team goes on day one. That's us.
I think
that's all.
We'll pop in before day one and leave the morning after. That's it. Yeah, I think day two is literally the new members of the conference and like Boston College. It's the next day is ridiculously weak.
My only dream is for the fine folks at SMU, Cal, and Stanford to get to see the smiling face and the slick back hair of my friend at Virginia Tech who leads the way in enthusiasm for the ACC, buddy.
Okay,
Can't wait.
He is there on day 2 on Tuesday, so you might want to stay around for that. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But the roster for that day is Cal, Pitt, Stanford, Virginia Tech. Ay.
We could stay to give hugs, parting hugs. I always liked you, never cared about you. You were always a bum. Loved you. You were always solid, even if your program wasn't. Let's have a beer with so-and-so. He was always a good guy. He knew his place. He knew that Boston College didn't matter. Go through all the guys. Shake hands, say goodbye. Soldiers parting ways.
Yeah. Hey, I love you. Triangle Media website. You helped me that one time. I ran out of chargers and ports, and you gave me a port. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. It's weird that your chargers all have skins that look like basketballs on them. That's strange, but you know what? It worked, and it charged my phone, so thank you very much. You're a good guy.
Man, it would be great if our boy was still there at Boston College because we would have gotten him a Danish one last time. We could have raised a glass of good red wine with him and said goodbye. Gonna miss you, boys. Gonna miss you.
Yeah, you could totally have broken protocol and just brought wine and poured him some wine. And, so
he
what?
Would have done it, yeah.
So what if they kick us out? Who cares?
Yeah, we're leaving anyhow. All of you can go to hell.
Yeah, I was leaving anyway. You can't kick me out. I'm leaving.
It would have been awesome because I do think he would have laughed because he knows. I mean, he spent 10 minutes talking about wine with me. So I do think that if he had walked up and I would have, good sir, great to see you this morning. Here you go.
If we didn't get the morning interview, we had an afternoon window. As he gets there to do like the big stage, you could have just held up the bottle of wine as he's answering questions. Like there's a question from Mike from the AP is answering. Well, the thing about this year's BC, I see you. Okay,
I see you,
the thing
Jeff.
about this, yeah.
I see you, Jeff. That looks like a bold red.
1:30, Steve. I'll see you there.
You and me, baby. Let's do it up one last time. We got Danish as well to go with the wine. It's Jeff Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit isf.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
Keeping power reliable and affordable here in Florida is our most important commitment. At Duke Energy, we're working across our communities, strengthening our systems, rerouting power to help avoid outages, and adding proven innovations that will help make the grid stronger and more secure today and ready for tomorrow. Because Florida deserves more reliable and affordable power, and we're determined to deliver it. Paid for by Duke Energy shareholders.
For 3 days only, February 23rd through the 25th, area boat and motor buyers will save thousands at Mike's Marine and Houseboat Show in beautiful Panacea. This is the event you don't want to miss. Every Yamaha motor from 2.5 to massive 425 horsepower has special extra low pricing. Yamaha, more in 24. Check out the region's largest selection of the best boats, including Speeder, Sea Hunt, Robalo, Taiwan, and G3, inshore, offshore, river, or lake. Mike's Marine has a boat for you, and you will buy for less. Some boat packages discounted over $10,000. Save on all accessories, including electronics and trolley motors too. They even drop prices on all pre-owned inventory. Lenders will be on site providing instant credit approvals and easy financing options. Door prizes too. And while you're there, drop in on one of Pannacea's phenomenal seafood restaurants. Hours of the show are Friday and Saturday from 8 to 6 and Sunday from 10 to 4. The Mike's Marine in-house boat show, February 23rd through the 25th. Don't miss it.
Excellence defines us, so we'll never let orthopedic pain and injury define you. TOC is a physician-led team of fellowship-trained specialists providing the highest level of orthopedic care in the region. With 12 centers of excellence and TOC Now urgent care clinics, our patients access affordable expert care fast. TOC, only experts. Schedule an appointment at teamtoc.com.
I'm Caleb. I'm the lawn supervisor at Paul's Termite and Pest Control, and I really do love my job. Paul's has created an incredible work environment that always puts our customers' needs first. Their needs are our concerns, and my particular job of improving the health of North Florida lawns is something I truly enjoy. I'm an outdoor person, and I get to be outside all day, watching the lawns run through the stages full of weeds to weedless to lush, grass-filled landscapes is very rewarding. I'm proud to represent Paul's.
I'm Jay. Having the privilege to work with people like Caleb and all of our employees is truly an honor. There is no doubt that the staff of Paul's Termite and Pest Control is the best in our industry. All of our people are local, and local really does mean something. We're North Floridians. Our kids go to school here. We shop here. We build relationships here, and we honor our commitment. Protect your family, pets, and home.
For the elimination of termites, any other pests, and a greener lawn too, call Paul's. We'll get them all.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orangetheory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orangetheory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orangetheory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orangetheory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics.
This one was to Duke, and I was there. Got a chance to see Luke Laux. It was good to see him and have a quick conversation with him. But for Florida State, it wasn't to be. I don't think effort was the issue. I thought the effort was just fine, but they just keep mounting the losses. So you had a sellout crowd there at the TLC CC, or at least it was announced that way. I saw some empty seats, but they were in it. They just don't stop people from making threes, and they don't hit threes on the other end. Sometimes it's that simple, man. I mean, Jared McCain ends up having a career day, and we let a lot of people have career days. I thought offensively, despite the fact that we don't shoot well from beyond the arc, that we actually played pretty well. We were 50% at the half. We were winning in the paint. But again, you cannot allow people to shoot 62% and 8 of 10 from 3.5. It's what happened in the first half, and our perimeter defense is often the problem. And again, double-digit threes are like daggers. When you're just allowing people to continue to shoot from 3 wide open over and over and over again, it's brutal. They were 10 of 16 for 30 points. We were 4 of 14 for 12 points from the 3-point line in this game. Duke was 14 of 20 from the free throw line. We were 7 of 11. BC comes to the TLC Double C for a rematch of the meeting 2 weeks ago in Chestnut Hill, 7:00 tomorrow. It's getting to be where it just doesn't matter to announce the games, Tom. And they play hard. They do play hard.
They do. And Jameer Watkins is a really good player. He would have been a player that would have been fun to watch on a team that was a little bit more loaded because I like what he does. He's got 4 straight games where he shot better than 50% from the field.
Mm-hmm.
He's double digits every night. He finds creative ways to score. He's hit the 3 pretty decently in recent action. I think he's 4 of his last, 6, something along those lines, 4 of his last 7. But I like watching him. I like watching some of the development of the guys that's going on. But they're just not good enough. I mean, it's sometimes you dance around it, but they're just not good enough. And they're a hell of a lot more likable than the last couple of years teams, but they're just not enough talent. There's not enough.
Now what happens now too is the greater conversation. It's unfortunate. You don't like to have it, but you are going to have it. And I think it's happening in circles everywhere right now amongst Florida State faithful and figuring out what do you do from here? I will throw this out there very quickly. And I think it's going to play a part in whatever direction the university decides to go. It'll be interesting. I don't know what Ham's thoughts are on this. But I feel like it's at a weird time for Florida State to be looking at their next basketball coach because they're in the midst of a lawsuit against the ACC that they're waiting to find out what's going to happen. They're rebuilding their football stadium. They're in the middle of doing all that while building a football-only facility. They just re-upped Mike Norvell and gave him more money and longer-term deals, all of those assistants. There's a lot of stuff happening simultaneous. And I wonder, I think if I'm not mistaken, Ham would be entering his final year of his contract going into next year. And most programs and teams obviously extend a coach if he's only got 1 year left. Otherwise, you've told everybody exactly what that is. But I frankly think that's the way to do it, is to just let him coach out the last year of his deal. And not extend. And if you have somebody in mind, maybe bring them on board. And that's where we're probably, in my opinion, probably where we're headed, because I just don't know what you're willing to go out and spend on your next basketball coach right now.
Well, what are you willing to go out and spend on your next basketball roster? The problem is it's very expensive. It's very expensive to build a basketball roster. Like per player, it's absurd.
When you got to have real connections too.
Yeah, and when you think about the TV dollars that come in, I mean, it's just so out of whack compared to football, the amount of money that a basketball roster would get in terms of NIL. And that's a tough thing. It's like, I wish Leonard was 5 to 10 years younger because he'd see us through to the other side. The best news that's going to happen to FSU basketball the next 5 years is when we get into another conference and there's runoff money to help all the other sports, basketball chief among them. I think a lot of resources have been diverted from basketball to football in recent years because of need, because of desperate need to get that thing going. And right now, that's where the resources need to go. But when we get into a Power 2, whoever the head coach is here, you've got a real chance to do some damage out of nowhere. It's just right now we're going to have to wear it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's my way of saying, like, hey, guys, what's going to end up happening here is that if Ham wants to come back next year, I suspect he's going to be allowed to come back. I don't know if he'll retire at the end of this year and say, you know what, the writing's on the wall. I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Or if he'd want to coach one more year, my guess is he would want to. But I don't get the sense that there's an appetite to go hardcore at the next big name to bring into Florida State when we're in the midst of figuring out where the hell we're going to be playing, and whether or not we're going to win a lawsuit and how soon we're going to be out of here. And we're rebuilding a football stadium. It's tough. Ira Winderman joins me now, as he's wont to do on Mondays. That's always a good thing. How are you, brother?
I'm great, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So you were in attendance yesterday, and you got to sit in the warm, the comfy confines of the press box while your boy was out there with the people down along the first baseline, feeling the cold during baseball.
I did. I had some empathy. I could feel what you were feeling for you, but no, I was not coming down there. I was going to enjoy the press box. I don't always love the press box because I like to get the windows open,
correct,
hear the sound.
Mm-hmm.
But yesterday I was pretty content to have the windows closed.
It's 2 games, buddy. I know it's just 2 games, but I think they're probably going to be, for a variety of reasons, and not because of the lopsided scores over Butler, I think they're going to be a lot better baseball team. I think they've lengthened their lineup. They're bigger and stronger. They've got more in the way of pitching depth. And that's about as good as it could possibly go to start the season, those 2 games. Everything was pretty much solid as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, it was everything you could ask for. But like you said, a lot of times players and teams look different when they play better competition. And
sure.
So, we're definitely going to be eager to see what those guys look like. I was talking to somebody who made the comment that they just like the fact that, both starting pitchers really, worked ahead, really pounded the strike zone, and all that sounds great, which I agree with. But also we've seen in the past where when you face lineups that can do real damage, sometimes pitchers aren't as apt to pound the strike zone.
Yeah.
I'm still in a little bit of wait and see mode, but no, you definitely, you like what you see from a potential standpoint, and it's exciting. It would be nice to have a baseball team, back in contention, just to be in the tournament, let alone, on the national stage.
Yeah, I think on a weekend like this, to your point, Ira, you just look for stuff. You look at the mentality of a pitcher. You look at what guys who come out of the bullpen, what they bring to the table, what their potential might be. That if you throw 96, you throw 96. So, you can get a sense of somebody who's able to run it up there and how guys respond when they get themselves into a little bit of trouble. Good teams beat bad teams soundly. So at the very least, this weekend saw one team dominate another team the way that you think they should if they're going to be any good. I know it's a small sample size, but when your 2 starting pitchers, Leiter and Arnold, go 10 innings combined, 2 walks, 22 Ks, 0 earned runs, you did all right.
Yeah, and I think both of those guys got into situations they didn't have a lot of trouble to deal with, but both those guys got into situations where, maybe got a runner or 2 runners on, and then it was strikeout.
Mm-hmm.
They really kind of asserted themselves, which, like you said, is definitely what you want to see. I think one of the things they've really lacked in pitching the last few years is some of that mental toughness. Some of just the competitiveness on the mound, and I think they've really lacked that. Maybe they've had 1 or 2 guys each year, but they haven't had it consistently. If they have that, that would be huge. And I think, look, we haven't talked about him really, but Mike Capozzi, a local guy who's now the pitching coach, I think Cam Leiter really praised him on Friday. And, he's had success where he's been in the past. And if he just brings that to these guys, I think he'll feel a lot better.
Yeah, they got a good leadoff hitter. They got who was good last year before he got hurt. Damas is a nice player, and I you sit around and look at some of the pieces, you get excited all the way through. Holbrook was hurt last year. He had a great day yesterday, obviously. 3 for 3, had the bomb. I felt bad for him. Remember his first hit last year was off the wall, and he ended up hurting his hammy. He was never right. So they have some things like that to go as well. I was just talking about basketball before you joined us. It's a tough situation. I thought they played hard. They're just not good enough, and they can't defend the 3, and they don't make threes. It's a broken record. I don't like to belabor the point. People are going to ask us repeatedly what we think happens at the end of the year. I'll ask you. I suspect that if Ham wants to come back, he will come back for another year for certain conditions that are right now probably not the best to go try to make a move. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I don't know that with everything else going on, whether or not it makes sense to, and there's so much else going on.
Yeah.
Construction and obviously the lawsuits and all these other things. And there's a lot of things in flux right now when it comes to trying to hire a basketball coach, if that's the route they go, because you have a lot of uncertainty around your athletics program right now. So I don't know that you're in a position of strength if you were to go on the open market. So we'd have to see. I mean, I think if the trains, the way I've felt really this most of the season was if the wheels came off, maybe you don't have a choice to make. You have to make a change. That hasn't happened yet. Even in these games that they're losing to really good teams, and usually they're within a couple possessions down the stretch. So I don't feel like it's like, oh, it's in dire need. Now, the people who decided last year or 2 years ago or 10 years ago that they wanted a basketball coach, every loss to them is more proof that a change needs to be made. But I think if you've been watching it all along, I mean, a lot of people, who follow it closely, feel like they're not that far off. It's certainly not an embarrassment like it was last year. So if you wanted to put it off a year, I think you could make that case. But if there's some pressing need, and if you knew there was some amazing young coach out there that you could get this year, but you couldn't get him next year, then maybe that forces Michael Alford's hand.
I speculated a moment ago, and I could be wrong. Would Leonard be going into his final year next year of his contract as it currently sits? Do you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, and assuming that he did not get an extension after last season, which I don't think he did. I believe that. Yeah, I believe he's got that one more year on the deal.
My brother, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Be well.
Thanks, Jeff. See you, man.
Yeah, Ira Winderman, Warchant.com. Softball team giving up 150 runs over the weekend.
Good Lord. Best news for them was that the Tennessee game couldn't be played.
Yeah, thank goodness. Inclement weather down on your old stomping grounds. It was ugly. I don't know what to think about that. I'm not pretending to be a softball expert. I just assumed with the way that Lonnie has built this tremendous program and consistent program that there would be more pitching. You lose Sander Cock, you're like, oh, well, at some point you're going to, but goodness gracious, it's batting practice on these girls. Just batting practice.
Yeah, I was a little late to turn on the Georgia game on Saturday. And when I did, there were 15 on the board already. I was like, oh my God, this is it's a little troublesome because the lineup is going to be able to hit its way to 8 to 10 runs against a lot of opponents. I mean, that's what the UCLA game turned into after we signed off. Florida State made a rally.
Yeah, well, at least 14-12, I think.
It got to 12-10. I think they got it within 2 because it was 12-5 when we signed off. And then
a 20-10 game against Georgia.
Yeah. This isn't. I don't know if there's maybe a freshman or two that they could turn to. Royalty was good against Stanford, not so hot after that. It's a good lineup though. The problem is it translates to any sport. If you can't play defense in football, you can lose to anybody. If you can't pitch, that Charlotte loss is not an outlier from opening day. There's a threat at all times.
Damn it, man. We were all just thinking that this was going to be a continuation of the fun times, going out on the deck, watching us club teams run away with the regular season, win another conference title, go on into the postseason and see if we can gear up to beat Oklahoma and knock them off. But alas, if you can't, I don't want any part of Oklahoma at this juncture.
No. Oh God, no.
They score 40 runs.
Patty Gasso just did 4 more baptisms, I think, and got 4 more studs. It's going to be dicey. What was interesting was in the Saturday interview, they do the interviews to start the innings or between innings. Lonnie said something that I was like, ooh, and she basically said, I'm proud of us. We haven't given up. We're still fighting. Oh no. She could not wait to get out of Clearwater and get back to the drawing board. They've got to find some solutions stat.
It's akin to the we're winners at life after a 2-10 campaign. My young men are going to be winners in life.
Usually when we come to Clearwater, we have a lot more success than this. A lot more success. This is an elite tournament, and we're usually one of the elite of the elites.
Yeah, we're one of the reasons it's an elite tournament. Not the punching bag.
Hidden. Yeah, the circle's a problem. We got to get better in the circle.
We'll see what happens. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Your local news now.
The city of Bainbridge elected to close Hatcher Road near the US 27 bridge Sunday evening because of rising water levels of the Flint River. The city expects the road to remain closed through Tuesday and is asking residents to take the closure seriously and not to move any barricades. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources has found the Bainbridge Decatur County Development Authority in violation of land disturbance in connection to the 200-acre primate breeding facility. An investigation revealed that land disturbing activities over 1 acre had occurred at the site without first obtaining general permit coverage. On Tuesday, Safe for Human Medicine filed a legal complaint with the federal court. They are battling with the Bainbridge Authority to keep the project agreement. The DNR is requiring the Development Authority to obtain the proper permit coverage within 30 days. Further enforcement action is pending, which may include monetary settlement to the state of Georgia. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 local news update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at McLemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Bright sunshine expected this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 64. Winds out of the northwest, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows around 38. Daytime highs approaching 68 tomorrow. Bright sunshine expected. Clear skies Wednesday with a high of 70. 72 Thursday. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Currently, it's 62 degrees.
Hey folks, it's me, Mac and More, spokesperson for Tallahassee's favorite Apple and Mac product store, Mac and More. We all know what Mac is all about. It's your MacBooks, iMacs, Apple Watch, iPhones, iPads, we've all got them. But what's really cool is the and more. And there's a lot more at Mac and More. They can help set up your new gear, migrate and back up your data, teach you new tricks and how to use everything better. And if something costs too much to fix, they'll tell you the truth. There's a lot more at Mac and More. See for yourself at MacandMoreSystems.com. Or you can take it from me, Mr. Mac and More.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu. Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Is that what is the pork?
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of, that nobody would know, and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com.
Bowl and what does and doesn't work, and now it's a flag football game. Now we watch the NBA All-Star game, which has not mattered in a long time, has kind of jumped the shark to where you got people scoring 211 points. It's just the silliest thing of all time. And you go through all the sports, and a lot of them have kind of gone a different route. In hockey, the skills competition is awfully fun to watch. It's really kind of the only thing around most of these All-Star games that are fun to watch anymore are the skills competition. I think the NBA is going to have to just do that and not play the game. That you've gotten to a place now where clearly the level of care is at zero. And if it's at zero, then you and I aren't going to watch. Not many people do. It also, I think, illustrates that when you try to gear everything towards offense, at some point you reach a place where the game no longer resembles what the normal version of the sport looks like. So I have argued that the standard for all All-Star games is Major League Baseball. Now, it's not even as good as it once was, but it holds up because it's the closest we have to the real version of the sport. All the rest, I mean, the NFL, I just said it, is playing flag football, literally. The rest of the games that, when we reach the All-Star break, the so-called games do not resemble the real version of the way the sport's played. If baseball suddenly was 27-24 in base, you would, I mean, what are we doing? You wouldn't do it. But it's just impossible. And I wish, I don't know, I wish there would, you can't make them do it. I get it. These are long seasons. And you don't want one of your star players getting hurt in an all-star game. But, man, I do miss the days where there was some fight. There was some care about which side won. I was going to D you up at the very least in the fourth quarter. We were going to see some semblance of competition. But there's no competition here.
No, unfortunately, I think the only way out, if you're going to continue the game, is to have a boatload of money to the winners. It has to be it has to be a really large amount, though. You know, I don't know what else you could do other than money. You know, it would have to be something that's maybe collectively bargained, that there's this like fund that's put together in multiple sports. You could do, it's not just basketball. You could do this in baseball too, or hockey, and say like to the winning team goes a share of X amount of dollars. Like, because then not only is the game itself going to look better, but the competition to become an all-star is going to get ratcheted up too. Like the campaigning for that, the players campaigning for themselves, vote for me, those types of things, you'll get a hell of a lot more engagement. I hate to say it because comp is up and they make plenty of money as it is. But I think that's the only way to make it happen. Is it has to be a startling amount of money for it to matter to the players as well. But it also allows me to ask you the greatest question, because what is the higher total? Last night's NBA All-Star game between the two teams, or the amount of Zaxbys that we have in Tallahassee? How many Zaxbys are there compared to the All-Star game point total?
Well, the point total combined for 397. It shattered the previous record of 374. But I'm sad to report there are not 397 Zaxbys in Tallahassee, Tom.
They've been expanding so quickly. I was hoping they'd gotten to that number.
And now it's 53. There are 53 Zaxbys in Tallahassee, and that really means that you can find one on virtually every street in this city. If you drive down said street long enough, you will run into a Zaxby's. And for that, it's an oasis. It's like you're just driving. Oh, there it is. There's the Zaxby's. I knew I'd run into it eventually.
Yeah, it has been known more than the 7 hills. It's known as the land of 53 streets. So that's a good point.
Yeah, they're on every street. You can buy shirts like that. I used to have one. So that's exciting. You get your Zaxby's. You enjoy the platters over the weekend, perhaps. Folks over at FSU going into Dick Hauser with all the platters on a cold day, putting your hands on a warm finger, dipping into that Zax sauce. You're going, all right, here we go. Crazy.
I do like how Mario suggests in the 70s and early 80s you could have offered Coke and gotten a hell of a game.
You could have, man. Late 70s, early 80s, Coke was at its apex there. It was omnipresent.
Every sport, you could have just done that. Yep.
Guys, bags of Coke for all of you, if you win. Now let's lace them up. No, one of the problems you have in the All-Star game, that it's pretty well done with now. I read something in the Wall Street Journal that I completely agreed with, which was that these All-Star games, in my youth, okay, I'm paraphrasing here, but if I look back on it, the All-Star games used to mean something in part because everybody didn't play everybody. So you had a chance to see players you would ordinarily never see. You wouldn't see stars from other teams unless they passed through your city, right? You could play. The idea of great players playing together was kind of a novel idea. And then if you went to a game, you'd like, oh my God, there's Rod Carew. He's in the American League. I never see Rod Carew play. And now I get to see him tonight here. They would all come together. And the players didn't, because we didn't have, in many cases, even scheduling so that everybody played everybody. And so then all of a sudden it was cool for the players too, because they're like, oh, I get to play against so-and-so. And, you would take great pride and you'd want to show out. And this was true of all of the sports, but it's not anymore. It's really not even for baseball. So I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of an all-star game is anymore, other than to get guys money for making one. But, that you can have the vote. You don't have to play the game. Because
okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say they're not trying. So I don't know why you would really even bother.
You could also do something to the effect of, like, there are all-star designations that are normal, but then that the young guns game, like most sports do something like this. Like in MLB, it's actually minor leaguers that play, and it's the showcase game. But if you constructed a team of young guns to play the all-stars, you might get competition there because you've got 19, 20, 21-year-olds trying to make their name, and they're talented too. Obviously, they have to be to make that type of team. But then you're also challenging the manhood of the old guard in these different sports.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a young gun who's going to one-up an old guy, because that happens, that's a dynamic that happens in professional sports in locker rooms. When the stud that's called up gets to be in the show and the aging star doesn't want to give the torch. I mean, that's a dynamic that coaches have to deal with. Maybe you play on that in the all-star game, and pride gets in the way there a little bit more than it is right now.
Remember, if you go back and we all watched during the pandemic, everybody was glued to Michael Jordan and ESPN, and we would watch whatever the hell that thing was called, Last Dance. And remember the footage? Remember the scene of Michael telling the East All-Stars that he was going to lock up Kobe? The kid. I think he called him the kid at the time. He's like, I got the kid. I got the kid. Like he was going to take great pride in the fact that Kobe wasn't just going to roll on in here and do whatever he wanted. That sure as hell ain't happening now. Nobody's like, I got the kid. It's like, okay, well, you move out of the way of this possession. I'll move out of the way of this possession. And, Jaylen Brown's quote, hopefully as years go on, the All-Star game will get back to being what the fans want to see. I guess guys are just trying to figure out how to play hard and be safe all at the same time. Yeah, no, it's not going back. It's not going to happen. Nobody's out here trying to get hurt in an all-star game.
Right. Well, the other part of it is the owners don't want them to either. This is one of the issues with many sports in Olympic participation. Like the leagues themselves don't want their assets to be in an international tournament that doesn't derive any dollars for them. And the only thing that happens to me if I'm an owner of a team, my players in the Olympics, is I'm at risk.
Right.
My season ticket sales are on the line that you don't get rolled up on, or, you don't twist an ankle or pop an Achilles. And that's the hard part. So it's not just the players who don't really care about it. The owners aren't exactly in love with it either. There's not much in it for them for stuff like this.
The good news is you saw when the United States put their collective effort into a real event like the World Baseball Classic, what could happen, buddy? There you go. Everybody came together, recognized competition, fierce competition for what it was, and that thing kicked ass. Continues to grow. Can't wait for the next one.
I'm sure you can't. I have to give due where it is just that when you have a crescendo where it's Ohtani versus Trout with
it's
the
as good as it gets.
I don't know that it can get better than that. That's phenomenal stuff.
It was so much fun, though. I could tell you were coming around. You're like, I begrudgingly have to give Jeff kudos on this. Damn it, this is entertaining as all get out. And there are a lot of games in that World Baseball Classic that were kick ass.
There were. You're correct. I don't know that the President's Cup is a bridge.
You'll get there.
No, that's probably a bridge too far. But
you'll get there. Wait till that next big President's Cup matchup. I'll break it out here. We'll talk about it. Hey, by the way, speaking of which, I love watching Matsuyama play golf, man. That is so cool. How about my boy dropping a 62? A 62 and telling the field, suck it. You guys think you're playing for something up here? I'm going to drop a 62.
Yeah, that's cute, Patrick Cantlay, that you can own Thursday and Friday, but Sunday is owned by Hideki. That's what's going on here. I didn't get to see it because the Outdoor Classic was a real game. That was maybe the best outdoor game in the NHL's 10-plus year history of doing this stuff. Unbelievable comeback.
Yeah, it was a comeback and it was fun. But I texted you. I was like, you got to lock into at one point with 4 holes to play. We had 6 guys tied for the lead. It's like, here you go. Way to go, Los Angeles. The Genesis Open was for real. I didn't win any money this week and I got smoked. Sorry ass Justin Thomas didn't even make the cut. Unreal. And then Aborg didn't do anything for me. Adam Scott was all right. Nothing. Didn't win any money. That's what happens. It's golf. Now the Florida swing, buddy. Here we go. We get to make some money in the Florida swing.
This is your territory. This is your territory. When they get on Bermuda, this is, what you got, a little extra something, a little sizzle when they're down at the Honda, when they're playing at Bay Hill. You usually run the table here.
For whatever reason, and it's been because I've been to most of those events. I've not been to Bay Hill. I'm going this year. Did I tell you that? I'm going to Bay Hill this year. So off we go. Yep. Just had to wait for you to get out of town.
That is awesome. What day are you going?
I'm probably going to go on Thursday and Friday at some point. Yeah.
Oh, man.
On over to Bay Hill.
You going to Army Navy too?
I won't tell you if I am. You'll fly in and meet me. No. I'm teasing, of course. No. That one, brother, we'll go together. We didn't have a pact for Bay Hill.
No. No, we talked about the players a hell of a lot more than we talked about Bay Hill.
Well, you should fly in for the players.
We also talked about playing Sawgrass.
I've played Sawgrass twice.
Yeah.
But you have not. I don't wave a wand. I mean, the connections aren't what they once were. I'll reach out there and see if old JCS still holds some clout at TPC Sawgrass.
This is me coming to you for the Clemson guy who revoked our credentials. Come on. I need that Cameron push.
Good work out of you, brother. Talk to you later. That was fun. Good work out of you, director, as always. Be good, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. Peace.